What up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Black Top Podcast. It is me, DJ. That's my cousin Christian on my left there. And as you can see, we are one man short today. No Ruben. But in his steed, I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah, as you can see, got a new homie with us down here. Christian and I have known this brother for probably more than half our life, it feels like. Yeah, no, I think I met. Well, first of all, his name is Gabe. Uh, yeah, as you can see, he's a big Phoenix Suns fan. And man, yeah, I'm just thinking, I've known this dude for a long, very, very, very long time. So I think as much as I can say, obviously he could introduce himself more. Gabe, what's up,
Oh,
bro?
well, thank you for the kind introduction. Hello. I My name's Gabe Galetto, and probably basketball talk is not exactly the place most people would find me, but yeah, I have been an avid uh Suns fan by choice for quite some time now, and I really have always been looking forward to good old hoop talk with Christian and DJ. Alongside yearly fantasy, and it's been a pleasure to just listen to you guys and a privilege to be on the show for today, so thanks for having me.
Thank you for saying yes. That's
Yes,
the
sir.
super duper excited to talk about this. So, in lieu of takes today, we're going to do something a little different. As you already know, or as most of you already know, I am a big ol' Milwaukee Bucks fan. And as you can see, Gabe, big ol' Suns fan. And I know it's a little past like the talk by date, but
Right.
that doesn't mean we can't still talk about it. So instead of the takes of the day, we're going to kind of just giving a little overview of the season of how our teams performed. Talk a little bit about the game sevens, but not as much as, we would probably want to. As well as, kind of giving a little overview of the offseason. As much as we're still in the last little remnants of the playoffs, the free agency period is very much looming. You're going to see guys like Zach LaVine potentially moving. Who knows what's going to happen with DeAndre Ayton? Is Bradley Beal going to sign the Supermax? There's a lot of questions looming. And we're here to partially answer that about our respective teams. So I think it's only right we let the guests go first. So, Gabe, talk about the
Man,
Suns, man.
where do I start about the Suns? Well, I guess I can start on the good things. We had our best year, period. And I think that's a great, way to look at it, in terms of progressing from being consistently the worst team for the past decade. It's been nice to watch the Suns in a regular season and look forward to like actually trying to win games, and to be doing that majority of the time, and to be a good regular season team, a great regular season team apparently, and just to be able to watch and enjoy that, is has been a really great thing after years of just being like not even wanting to watch because you know that it's not going to be good. Season has been great. Obviously did not end the way that we would hope. We got Coach of the Year, which is great. We've really wanted recognition. I feel like the Suns community really fights for that kind of recognition on any level that we can get. Mikal Bridges being runner up for Defensive Player of the Year was like huge. Is it a snub? I don't know. Um, the Devin Booker for MVP conversation is nothing but an agenda push. Let me say this straight before we get started. Devin Booker, I love you. You are my guy. Not MVP material, and we all knew that. We all knew that. However, the conversation for Devin Booker for MVP does secure him a spot on the first team All NBA, which is our more realistic goal. So instead of arguing for first team All NBA, you shoot up and you kind of settle for it, and I think that that's where we landed, and that's great. There's no way that I would even vote for him over like Giannis, Embiid, Jokic. Like that's like as some people I would like to believe on Suns Twitter maybe a little bit delusional, or at least the ones that DJ sees on a daily basis. I'd like to think that I take a relatively emotionless and well straightforward um, point of view when it comes to observing this team. Um, Yeah, I don't know. Everything checked out to be good. Leading up into the end of the regular season, kind of looked a little weird. I don't know if anybody realized that. Um, kind of like leading into the postseason, we had like a couple weird losses when we were going towards our uh like franchise record. But I don't know. Other than that, it was great. Like we had a lot of injuries, a lot of substitutions, but like the team played well throughout the regular season. I don't. Is that all recovering just regular season stuff, or like
No, no,
trying
no.
to go
Let's
in?
hear some of the. Let's hear your initial thoughts on the postseason and kind of
Initial thoughts on the
quick little run
postseason?
through.
Yeah. So just the Pelicans were good. I thought that that wasn't exactly who we had in mind in playing in the like first round of the postseason, but like it's the playoffs, anything can happen. They played very well. They knew how to counter us in some ways, and I credit a lot to that to Willie Green for spearheading the Pelicans turnaround, especially such a weird start to their season. But I think a lot of people forget that Willie Green was the assistant coach for us just last year. So he, in a sense, knew the Suns roster from the inside out and did a very good job with what he had to, try to slow the team down. We lost Book for a couple games. I mean, I don't think that anyone really thought the Pels would beat us anyways. Um, and then, cruise through that. The Dallas series, I remember kind of going into it in a group chat. I was like, like realistically, um, like I was with what information I had, I actually genuinely thought it was gonna be Suns in four. The first two games genuinely like kind of showed that, and I was like, okay, great. Like we're like off to a great pace. You know, our roster mismatches with all of them. Like, Luca is a fantastic player, don't get me wrong. And like I just thought that with how well we were executing the whole regular season, that it shouldn't have been as big of a problem. But kudos to Jason Kidd for outmaneuvering us, which to me is like the most surprising part of it. And their whole team, really stepped up since the trade deadline, and I haven't really been too observant of how the Mavs operate. And they eventually took us out in seven, which we, played pretty sorry since game three. You know, disappointing for sure, confusing because there's not one person to blame. There's just everything top down, ownership to bench. Like, I don't know, man. Like, it was kind of just weird to watch. Like, because you at first you think, oh, maybe it's just the home court bug, or maybe it's just, like, oh, like Chris Paul fouled out. He's not gonna do that again. And then, all of these things won't happen again, happened again. And it was just like all of this well-oiled machine that I've come to love and trust, um, you know, just started to fall apart. And without each part working, other parts just kept falling apart. And eventually it dumpster fired into what looked like the worst performance of the whole season on the most important game of our season. So that's how I can look at it. Like it's unfortunate. Like I don't know what else I can say. But like, GG, go next. Uh yeah. That's all I can really put it in, like, in a short consensus without me like blowing things up into like individual points. But I mean, did you guys, from your perspective, have any questions about like what went wrong or what thoughts you had? Like, I'm curious to think for you guys who all guessed, Phoenix, or no, got all guessed Mavs in seven. You know, even though you the preface to that prediction in your previous episode, you're all like, yeah, Phoenix is pretty damn good, but I want to see the Mavs, and then like you got what you all wanted. And I watched game 6 with Christian. I was like, man, I'd really hate for you guys to be right. And you guys are right. And so like here I am just applauding slowly with one tear like crawling down my left cheek. But yeah.
I think the first thing to say is that as a kid, Chris Paul must have done some foul shit, man, because he's undoubtedly probably the most unluckiest like player of all time. I mean, if that hamstring thing is legit, sucks for that to happen, but shit, man. What was it, like 50 points at one point? And that's not even Chris Paul's worst playoff loss. He's a part of like the biggest one, I think, where the margin was like 58 or 68 at the end of the game. But I think the shitty thing is that the Phoenix Suns were so good the entire season. They were like literally like steamrolling through people at some point. And when they had 60 and 22, I think majority of those losses probably came off the fact that like I don't know what the numbers are, but I feel like a very small amount of those numbers is when it was like the entire starting five was playing. Because yeah, you're right. They had those spurts where Chris Paul was out for a bit. Devin Booker took over as PG, showed flashes that he's much more than a scorer, which is solid to see. And then D Book obviously missed some time, and you guys have Jay Crowder. No, but
That's just a knock on Jay Crowder by himself.
no,
Yes,
but
I can see it. Yeah.
they played amazing basketball up until
Mm-hmm.
that very last game.
Yeah.
It's shitty how it went down, but I also think that I think Phoenix had a crazy turnaround from one of the most appreciated teams to like I hate to use the word hate, but I think that definitely turned a lot of heads, and whether it be the Luca special or you know I don't know what happened to the Suns in four dude from last year. I hope he's doing okay, but I just think that Phoenix fans got so excited. Like, obviously, some of it may have come off as cockiness, but I mean, again, considering that their last playoff appearance was with Steve Nash,
Mm-hmm.
and to look where he's at now, Mari Stoudemire, Sean Marion, I don't think anybody on that team except maybe Goran Dragic is still playing. So I understand the excitement,
Yeah.
but I think just looking at the
Yeah.
way they handled it, you know,
No, that's
it
definitely
was it
for
was all
sure,
kind
man.
of
That's definitely for
left a
sure.
bad
We
taste.
we speed run we speed run our way back into being contenders, which is great in some ways, but then I think that we like as a team like it did source, I don't want to say how the players acted because that's separate from like the point that I really want to make is that like the team definitely got a little too comfortable. Um,
I think that's the right word. Yeah.
like that's like everything from I guess like not trading our first round pick this year for another shot maker was very questionable because I think that you think when we were thinking about the problems of last year's roster and what stopped us from getting into from the finals, we are just like, oh, we lacked big men that could sustain minutes without fouling. And so you pick up JaVale McGee, not bad, I guess. Bismack Biyombo, great. But those two were only real pickups to prepare ourselves to potentially face Giannis again. And I think that like picking up Aaron Holiday at the end of the trade, uh, yeah, at the end of the trade deadline was like okay, but like he didn't contribute anything for us in the playoffs, right? So like that's like a little bit questionable. There's a lot of people like rooting to pick up, Eric Gordon or anyone else who could. That was probably the biggest one. But yeah, like that comfortability definitely like settled in. Same thing when you're talking about Chris Paul earlier, like sure, like it's just another curse from the basketball gods, but like there's no excuses, man. Like if you are injured and you're like hiding it, like you shouldn't be forcing yourself on the floor. Like I don't like think that that's like the smartest thing to do. Like, also like you're getting picked up by Luca every single time, and then you're like trying to hide an injury that's like withering you down. Like I would rather see campaign trash minutes or even Aaron Holiday play if you're really suffering that bad, because what he was able to do on the court wasn't anything positive, clearly. And like, that's on Chris if you're just like too like didn't want to step down and you were like too or like I don't know how to say, like, you didn't want you weren't humble enough to like acknowledge your injury and the detriment that you're actually putting on the court. Like at the same time, like Monty, maybe you should have like forced your hand. I get that like you run with like CP3 and you run with Book and you let them do whatever they need to do, but like, man, like I just wish that he even made proper adjustments. Like, yeah. Yeah, I think just the whole team just got like way too comfortable. I think that like people on Twitter, especially you saying like, oh, like a lot of people were looking at like this season and be like, oh, was last year a fluke? All that kind of stuff. But I think that if you switch the results from the playoffs last year and this year, and we got out in the second round last year and made the finals this year, it'd be a totally different conversation, you know? But here we are, and that's just how it goes.
Can I just mention one thing too?
Yeah, man, go for it.
I don't think we need to like necessarily add on to this because I think it's almost subjective more than it's subjective. I really
Mhm.
think Devin Booker has a bad on-court attitude. Like I think like he can be a clutch player and he can
Mhm.
make shots, but talking mid-game and talking trash again, it's a part of the game. But then talking that shit and not backing it up is another thing. And I think he just needs to like actually stabilize himself because you can see it through his game a lot of the times that he takes a lot of emotionally driven shots. Like he'll try to be the play hero ball and like take it up the court and take the first shot available, right? And I think that is like borderline a downfall to like how the Suns should be playing because I think the way they've operated all season is being like a cohesive unit. Like
Mhm.
from 1 to 5 and how they like push like how they kick the ball out, how they get it to Aiden in the post. Oh, my headphones came out. How Chris Paul like gets those middies from like kind of
Mhm.
like from the swings, right? Like it's stuff like that that was like contributing to winning ball. And I think I'm not saying it's the only problem, but like I thought
Would
Devin,
you say that that was an issue in this postseason more than the regular season?
yeah, definitely. And I
Okay.
think it was definitely an issue also like last postseason too, honestly.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
but
mean, I don't think that he plays as much hero ball as you think. I can agree to like his like, you know, trash talk being relatively higher than everyone else's, but um I still think, if you look at his efficiency and his points per touch and like all those kind of like factors like and him being he actually does really play well and a very efficient rate, on this team. I think that like uh I would kind of disagree with the hero ball a little bit. Like sure, I think that he does his not even like bread and butter, but like his contested mid-range shots, like which, they're essentially a prayer sometimes, but like he does hit those every now and actually not even now and then. He hits those like relatively often, which is kind of what separates Devin Booker from everyone else. But I think that like uh I can agree to that being a your take on his like emotions and all that trash talk and stuff like is cool. I think, but specifically I think I would disagree with the hero ball and the like him stepping out of the system type thing. But that's just yeah, yeah. But I would agree
I
for
feel he's earned it though, because I mean,
hmm
Devin Booker is arguably one of, if not the best scorers at the two guard position right now. I
yeah.
I do think the fact that he takes a lot of the contested shots is a detriment in that obviously that's still a bad shot. But then that's kind of something you live with if you're Devin Booker because you know you can make those shots. And even
Yeah.
at those hero ball moments, you live and die with that. Devin Booker's your best player. And,
Yeah.
you know, everybody wants to talk schemes and all that. But at the end of the day, when the game's close, what are you going to do? Put the
hmm
ball in the hand of your best players and let them go to work.
That's true. And I think my last point towards that is that there's not enough people on the roster that can take a contested shot or make their own shot.
I
I
think
think
that was
that,
the big thing that really did
you
them in.
know,
Yeah.
like, it's like you have players that like, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, Mikal Bridges, which are all, great players, but they're all relatively specialists. And without Chris Paul to kind of set them all up, like the whole thing kind of falls apart because, you may have one of the highest 3-point percentages of Cam Johnson, but if he's not getting an open look, same thing with Jay Crowder, you know, you don't really want him to take step backs. Like not many people could get it going for themselves. And I think that when the Mavs defense completely put Suns in a chokehold, we couldn't get anything going because no one, including Book, who would be technically like the only person, could get a shot like by himself. Like we can get anything to go down. So
No doubt. I guess kind of
yeah,
looking past that, Gabe,
yeah, man.
with the off season coming up, what are your kind of hopes slash expectations for the Suns to retool and hopefully run it back?
I mean, I think that like you know Aiden is obviously the biggest question. Do I think we're getting him back? I'm like a little more leaning on the no side. I mean, there hasn't been too much information coming out, but just from what I've been hearing, it's just not looking good. Um, like not to like go back into like critique the series, but like um I think that like DA's play style a little bit. The Suns roster, which was built really well, is built to complement his strengths. But I don't think DA's strengths in particular are great for this generation in the NBA because he likes, have his little pick and pops, his elbow floaters, like all those which are great and a lot of people like ride really well on him like, "Yo man, he's a big man who can shoot." But like you can't tell me that I I question a universe where we even had like a Clint Capella or like a Jonas Valanciunas or even like a Jakob Podol. Just someone who's like willing to like really pick and roll and like dunk the ball because he doesn't really like to do that. And like so we it's typically well accommodated to let him do what he needs to do. So if he goes, he goes. I believe that if Chris Paul is still healthy, he can unlock someone just as good. Maybe I can hope and like because I'm a little iffy on giving him all the money. If they do, that's great. Run it back. You know, that's fine. But like I'm a little questionable on that. Like I don't even know if I'm like more convinced that we should like pay Cam Johnson more. Like maybe that's a stretch, but like when we're looking at the pay like when we're looking at our off season, we also have to consider like Book's eligible for like a really fat extension. So like depending on what he does with that, definitely does alter the way that we're going to be reconstructing what we have. But I'm gonna say for now, like if we don't end up keeping Aiden, like I'm already at peace with it. So that's just how I feel towards it. But everything else is like I kind of like the core. Shamit is cool too. I just want to say something towards like all the people on Twitter. Like I want to let you know that like the Suns trade machine, like people are like, "Yo, man, we're gonna get like Kevin Durant for like a sign and trade. We're gonna get like, oh, we're gonna get like Joel Embiid or Dame." I'm like, "Yo, chill. This is not happening." Like, I would love to see it happen. It's not happening. Like, I don't like. Why are you mocking up a 3-team trade that like splits SGA, John Collins, and like involves all of these pieces, and then just we're like, "Yeah, man, we're gonna get like all of them." I'm like, chill. But moves are definitely going to have to be made. Uh, I think realistically, I don't know if I'm trading Chris Paul. I don't know. I think the only real pieces that are completely safe in my hand, like in my head, are like Book and like Mikhail. Anyone else, for a good reason, could go.
No, I think that's a good outlook on it. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even like see the fact that DeAndre Ayton was kind of being like a baby about Game 7. Like you mentioned that earlier. So I do hope that if he is gone, it's through a sign and trade rather than just kind of losing him outright, just so they do get some value back. Because I mean,
Hmm.
you know, again, as much as they've kind of gone from hero to villain so quickly, I think, you know, at the end of the day, Phoenix is one of those small market teams, and you need those teams to really be at their peak rather than, kind of going back into the lottery because that's what makes basketball competitive. It's not so
True.
much just LA versus New York.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but
Agreed. Agreed. Man.
yeah, that's solid, That's solid. You have any last things, or you got all you got out your chest? I do think NBA Twitter trade machine is probably the worst part of NBA Twitter.
No, I'm good. I'm kind of sad that it wasn't like like a Suns Boston finals. I think that ideally in terms of just personally, I would have really liked that. Uh I mean, I would have liked anything to be, for the Suns season to continue, but you know, yeah, I think that just if you're going to be looking to where I'm at, I don't really have a horse in the race. I could root for any team for like any reason at this point. Like my family's from San Francisco, you know, Heat are like very likable in my terms. I'm fond of like Lowry and Butler and Boston's Boston. I don't know if I'm really rooting for the Mavericks, but like I am all for Luca just showing everyone why he's like, next in line GOAT material.
Why he can be better than Jordan.
Yeah, and if that happens, that's cool with me too, man. Like if you hurt my feelings on the way, but you continue to be great, like that's all I could ask for. Just go out there and play good basketball and show me why you beat us. Like the last thing that we would want in the Suns community is for like the Suns to lose to the Mavs and then Mavs play like trash against Golden State and then it's just like a boring thing because you can definitely like I can guarantee you that Suns Golden State would have been relatively entertaining, but that's I think I can take my foot off the pedal. I'm very
Okay.
tame about it, but for the most part, unless you have any further questions, like I'm pretty chill. Yeah.
I think it's pretty thorough, to be
Yeah,
Thanks,
honest.
that was
man.
solid.
Thanks, man. Sorry for taking so much of your guys' time. I know that we don't want to talk too into it, but
No
we have a lot
worries.
of we got a
All
lot
good,
of ball
yo.
to go through, my
Yeah.
guys.
All right. I guess I'll kind of streamline through this. So, the Bucks. I'm very proud of this team's fight. I mean, there was literally less than 20 games with the team starting five. Brook Lopez was out after game one, didn't come back till like felt like game 65, something like that. Chris going down in the first round was really big. But I do think, as shitty as it is that they're not playing right now, I think it's a blessing in disguise because reports were saying that even if they did make it past, he still wouldn't have been ready for the conference finals. And I think looking at against the Heat without arguably our number one option when it comes to crunch time and our number one option when it comes to who can create their own shot, definitely would have been a tough series. But I first off, I think Bucks Twitter is fucking insane because they're all saying like, "Oh, we gotta shift the core or whatever," and they don't want to pay Chris Middleton 200 million. What the fuck are y'all saying? Chris Middleton won Game 5 and 6 for the Eastern Conference Finals is the reason that they were even in the finals, and even then, Chris Middleton was doing his thing in the finals. I think, you know, Bucks Twitter really has this Chris Middleton cycle where he goes from playing like ass to playing like Michael Jordan in the midi to going back to playing like meh, then going back to ass, and then just this whole cycle. But I think that regardless of how he's playing, Chris Middleton's role is the fact that he's the Scottie Pippen of this team. He's the number two. You know, without him, I think it's like if they were to ship him off and bring in another superstar, I think it's not a crazy thing to say that Giannis feels slighted by that. And maybe potentially doesn't even sign the Supermax. So I think even if they were to trade Chris Middleton, I don't think there's an upgrade for that. Just because I think he plays so well with Giannis that it's literally the 1-2 punch that's been there for like feels like over a decade at this point, which is right at about a decade. And yeah, I'm just hoping that next year it's a blessing in disguise that he gets to like fully recover, doesn't need to feel pressured to come back or anything, and he's coming back when he's 100%. So I'm excited for that. The biggest thing though, I think is with free agency and the fact that two of I think our most integral guys that aren't a part of the core but are a part of the bench mob is Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton. I mean, Bobby Portis has an option for $4.5 million, and that's a player option. Obviously, all of us are pretty certain. I know I'm certain that Bobby will probably decline that. I think as much as he's the man of Milwaukee, I do believe he deserves his piece, bruv. So that being said, I do believe they have the 3 years of Bird rights, the minimum thing. So I do think they can go into the luxury to sign him, and I do hope they do that because I think it's similar to Chris, where you're not fully signing him just for his capabilities, but what he brings to the culture. And Bobby's definitely kind of the heart and soul of that team. I don't think there's any doubt with that. Pat Connaughton, you know, this is the white boy who sealed game. What was it, game 3 or 5? I don't know. This is the man from Massachusetts that was able to seal the game on his home floor. He has a $5.7 million player option. He is the one I can see accepting it, but I also can see him not because, I mean, he had a career year this year. It's crazy. He broke his shooting hand during the season, and I expected him to come back kind of like, it's going to be a little shaky, but I think arguably, I don't think his numbers were better, but the way he was able to catch and shoot the ball, he was catching it like right here, so he was ready to go right away. That was great to see. So again, I expect them both to decline the player options, but I do hope Milwaukee is willing to go into the luxury to sign that because I don't think there's really anything that needs to be done with this team. I think, this was kind of, I don't want to say a write-off year because I don't believe in that necessarily unless you're like the Pistons and you're tanking. But I think when you look at the adversity the team's faced, whether it be, Drew Holiday missing the first few games after game 1, again, Brook Lopez being out for a majority of the year, Chris Middleton going down in round 1, I don't think there's anything that really showcased that, 1, this team doesn't have the ability to run it back, and 2, that this team isn't like built for championship basketball, which I still think it definitely is. With that being said, though, the one person I'm hoping that stays aside from those two is Javon Carter. Although I would not be surprised if he felt slighted just by the fact that George Hill got significantly more burn over him. As much as I love George Hill, considering that I used to be a Pacers fan back in the 2012 days when they were running against the Heatles, George Hill can't hold a fucking candle to Javon Carter defensively. I mean, I think outside of Drew, Javon Carter is probably the number 2 like perimeter defender. And yeah, I think the main thing that I saw from this playoff run, I think, was really the hole that PJ Tucker left. That low maintenance guy that can really be an isolation defender stopper. That was the main thing I think we were missing because, the paint defense was pretty solid. Drew was obviously giving like problems to Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Wesley Matthews got in there a bit, but wasn't to the same level that PJ Tucker was. But we were really just missing that dog. And, is what it is. If he does win with Miami, it'd still feel nice because, I love PJ Tucker. But yeah, I think in lieu of kind of going through it series by series, I think overall the main thing we were missing was, outside of obviously Chris Middleton, was that secondary one-on-one defensive stopper because, the Celtics had a field day. The defensive game plan is a whole nother thing. I think it's crazy that Bud didn't adjust to that. But yeah, I think we'll talk about that later because I do have a question about the man who arguably ended the Bucks season in Grant Williams. But no, I think obviously it's disappointing that they weren't able to run in back. But, I think considering the circumstance, again, pretty solid. We saw Giannis take another step. He was able to hit his mid-ranges and he looked, I will say, even though the numbers don't show it, about him shooting better, I think he shot better and that he looked a lot more comfortable taking like catch and shoot threes at the top of the key or off the dribble or, the Dirk one-legged fadeaway. And I think, if he had that hunger already going into the off season off of being a champion, off of another season where there's no doubt in his mind he should be playing basketball still, scary hours, except this isn't James Harden and it's actually going to happen. But yeah, I think looking forward, hoping for more jumps from guys like Jordan Nwora. I think the main thing for him is just on the defensive end, he's pretty ass, but he's definitely a bucket. His favorite player is Carmelo Anthony, and the way he's very offensive heavy and defensive lacking, I think is very telling of why that's his favorite player. And another player is Sandro Mamukelashvili. I think that's the second longest name in the NBA right now, last name wise. But nah, I think he's been dubbed kind of like this mini Jokic, and obviously I don't want to like fully put that title, but watching him play, I see the resemblance and kind of the what's the opposite of hesitance? Kind of the quickness to kind of give him that title, because he is a big man. He has shown the ability to kind of run the floor and, you know, play meh on both ends, but he has the ability to stretch the floor, and he's another guy I hope does take that next jump. I don't think he'll be in the rotation at all, but just another guy that Milwaukee can hopefully build up with their player development. Because, I mean, Chris Middleton and Giannis Antetokounmpo, those two are obviously kind of the faces of that, considering that they were homegrown. And then the last thing is that we have a first round pick since, like, I was looking at it earlier. The last person that Milwaukee drafted in the first round was Dante DiVincenzo, and we know that guy's pretty solid. But yeah, looking to that, I think my main hope for that is we either grab another wing or a potential replacement for Brook Lopez. Some guys that I've seen around there, kind of like EJ Liddell out of Ohio State, was pretty solid. Walker Kessler's a nice big man coming out of Auburn who played alongside who I think is going to be the number one pick, Jabari Smith Jr. But a dude that I'm really hoping they do grab, just because, like, I'm not a big college basketball watcher, but I really started following the tournament last year, and I kind of rock with UCLA, Johnny Juzang, you know, number one player out of UCLA, and number two, he's an Asian fellow, so you know I gotta rock with that. He did declare for the draft this year, but considering his disappointing performance in the tournament this year, I don't think he'll get picked up, or I don't think he'll be picked. But as a UDFA, that's kind of who I'm hoping for. But I mean, yeah, y'all got any questions or anything? I mean, you know.
So with Chris Middleton, you think you win the series but don't win a championship? Or no.
Oh, with Chris Middleton, they win.
I
think they go all the way.
Yeah.
It's tough because the Miami games we played this year, game one was a shit show. They got played off the floor. Game two, they played Miami off the floor. Game three was kind of the closest one, but I still think Miami won that one.
Yeah.
And then game four, I can't remember what happened, but that's tough. Obviously, I'd still go with the Bucks, but I do think. Ooh, man, that's hard. Shit. Obviously, I want to go with the Bucks, but
No, I think that you have a solid run to run it back with Chris Middleton for sure.
yeah, because I mean, if you look at it, obviously you have Drew to kind of hamper Jimmy. I don't think Bam's stopping Giannis one-on-one. I don't think anybody's stopping Giannis one-on-one. I mean, we saw that. There wasn't anybody who could guard Giannis one-on-one, but when you had Grant Williams and Al Horford both, like, I literally remember one possession, they were like this just so he couldn't drive past them. Man, that's hard because I think the East is definitely the top of the top is all very, very close, I feel.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Yo,
I
shout
do
out
think
to
they run it back.
shout out to Pat Connaughton one time. Not gonna lie, when I in the games that I did watch, I was like, damn,
Pat Connaughton.
That boy nice.
You know,
Like-
there's Larry Bird. And then when it comes to guys who played in Boston or came from Boston, Larry Bird, Pat Connaughton right there, man.
I just like to quickly to clarify my gripe with Chris Middleton. I think that you are very aware that I'm not a very big Chris Middleton fan, but I think that you like just to get understanding from my perspective, definitely clarifies things really quickly. In the bubble season, you had the opportunity to beat the Memphis Grizzlies, unfortunately without Giannis, and if you won that game, the Phoenix Suns would have made it to the playoffs. And I'm very upset that Chris Middleton did not show up in the one game where I was asking him to win for us. and then proceeded to play like Michael Jordan against us in the finals.
Oh, that was the
So
game.
like,
I think Giannis got suspended before for the
yeah.
flagrant
It was
too,
definitely like,
right?
yeah, it was like
Yeah,
definitely in a suspension. And
yeah.
I was like, man, like you really like I'm not even choked for the Bucks because it's meaningless for them. Like I'm like, bro, can you like we are so close. We are so close to the playoffs, man. And like, I mean, I get it. It was like relatively a scuffed season from the get. You had Aiton's 25 game suspension, whatever.
Oh, I
But
forgot about that.
so like that's why a lot of people are saying like, oh, Chris Paul turned it around. I'm like, yeah, but like we kind of were on the good track before he got there. The real turnaround for the Suns started earlier that season with acquiring James Jones as their GM. So,
Mm, he got that
but anyways,
GM. He got the
that's
GM blood cursing
yeah,
his
yeah, yeah.
veins.
But that's just like just because for all like the petty crap that I throw in the group chat about like man Chris Middleton blah 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 blah. It's like it's not that I like actually hate the guy because he's a really good like basketball player. I'm just very sad that you know when I ask him to do well, he doesn't really do well.
See, that's the
And
thing.
then
You gotta go
when I
with
ask him
Chris
not to do
Middleton, low
well, he's like,
expectations.
yeah, man. He's like, yeah. Anyways, but I agreed a lot of the takes, man. He like when I watched him cook us last year in the finals, and I was like, damn, I gotta respect it, you know. But anyways, just wanted to clear the air for that because that's the only like thing whenever we discuss like Bucks Suns stuff that like I can get a little bit like salty about is like literally just that.
Mm.
But
I got a question for you, DJ. Like more just like a quick fire question, but I think given that you have an aging Brook Lopez on your team, I had to search up his age. He's 34. Obviously, he's probably got a few more years, but let's be honest, he suffered a pretty serious injury. He was pretty much out the whole season. And I mean, Bobby Portis is that guy, but he's also, in my opinion, like not exactly the starting center material that maybe the Bucks need to like continue playoff push. How do you feel about the center situation in Milwaukee right now?
I love Brook Lopez, but I'm trading Brook Lopez.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
fair enough.
if you can. But the only thing is that who would you really trade for? Because I don't think there's really anyone that fits that mold of him right now. I mean, you
Miles
know.
Turner. Miles Turner. Okay.
Oh, I'd do that in a
Um,
heartbeat, but
no, Miles Turner is reserved for the Phoenix Suns. Thank you very much.
Miles Turner, we were saying this earlier. If he got traded, he literally could have like held so much sway in who won.
He is the game changer for
He
real.
is the big game changer. I mean, we all know what Indiana is. They're the kings of mediocrity. But who's right by
I'm
there?
excited for them next season, though. You
True.
know,
What'd they get? The sixth pick?
I don't
Something like
even know,
that.
but
But
like even just like Tyrese
mm,
and
Tyrese Halliburton's gonna be an all-star next year. Big take.
that boy nice,
That boy's nice with it.
that boy nice.
But yeah, no, I would package. Yeah, no, I would trade Brook Lopez, frankly. And yeah, I love Bobby, but he just doesn't have that size to really be a pure center. Because I
Yeah.
mean, they say he's 6'10", but I think he's more 6'9", and even
Yeah,
then, he's not much of a rim protector. He's there to give you buckets. But
true. Yeah,
the only
those
reason I wouldn't trade him is just because, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I don't think there's really anyone who fits his mold of just being, you know, his ability to play back to the basket or to spot up on the corner, whatever it is a big thing I think for the Bucks, because obviously the reason they have a lot of success is that they're surrounding Giannis with shooters. But more than that, I think his oh my bad, I just got a text. More than that, I think just him being even a presence in the paint, I think is such a big thing, because everyone was saying, oh, he's fucking washed defensively, and even if that's true, I mean, I don't care who you are. If you see a 7 foot, 300 pound man in the paint, you're gonna even think twice before you drive there. But as much as I love him, I would say if there's a trade to be made, I would do it. But I just don't know who.
I just like to yeah, man. I just want to shout out Brook Lopez because there's been no other big man that has remodeled his game to stay in the league as long as he did.
Mm, he's the
Like
greatest
that's
Brooklyn net of all time. And
true, true. You know, um, yeah. I just wish that I had a reliable center. You know, it's fine.
I think that's the perfect segue to finally start talking conference finals ball. So, out besides just like we're kind of since we're a couple games into each series, or at least 2 games into the one of them so far, we're not gonna go just be like, okay, we have Heat and whatever, Celtics and whatever. I have come up with some questions again, and let's just start this first off one. So obviously you've heard me and Gabe talking a lot of times. So Christian's gonna start us off here. Christian, what would a championship do for Jimmy Butler's legacy?
All right. I've been thinking about this. I think I haven't placed him in a certain point of like where he would be, but I think he would definitely then get his flowers, if that makes sense. Because I don't think people give Jimmy Butler his flowers because I think for one, he's not like a highlight player. He definitely is more known just as like the player who's been Mr. Consistent. Um, I mean, looking at like his kind of individual accolades right now, he's won Most Improved. He's been a steals leader last year. He's reached All NBA third team for 4 times in the last pretty much 4 seasons. He's been on the All Defensive second team 5 times. Um, and I don't know. I think, and he's been obviously an All Star. I think 6 times now. Um, and so I think for him, it would really cement his legacy as a player who is like, I think goes from like good in a lot of people's minds to like great or like superstar. Because in my mind, and in my opinion, I think he is a superstar in the league, but people don't recognize him as a superstar. People recognize him as all-star Jimmy Butler, even though like Jimmy Butler has pretty much faced adversity. He's got into the finals with pretty much the same team. He's pretty much elevated every team he's been on. He's been like one of the best defensive players in the league, not named Kawhi for how many years, and I think people still don't see him for that. And so I think much like I think how people treated Giannis last previous to last year, but not exactly in the same regard, but similarly, I think it would really give him that status of being like, okay, this guy. I was sorry. This is I totally thought of something else, and I was gonna say like this guy fucks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Fox.
If Jimmy
I agree.
Buckets does one thing, he
He
does
fucks.
fuck.
He
Word
does
to
fuck.
Rachel Nichols.
yeah. But no, I think he would definitely be like well regarded as like a top 10 player in the league because
Mhm.
I don't think he gets that, even though in my personal opinion, but I think objectively you could say it. He is like a top 10 player in the league,
True.
but he won't get that. But he will if he were to win the chip.
All right, solid. Gabe, you got anything to add, bro?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think like DJ and I briefly talked about this. It obviously separates him from the Damian Lillards and the Allen Iversons of the league. You know, the people who have made it relatively far, but unable to attain the prize possession chip. But I think that what would separate him from a Dirk in that sense, is the fact that like Jimmy Butler and his brand of basketball and is just like he's not like you look at him and you just like he's not like crazy unstoppable. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't have like the Dirk, one-legged pull-up let like just bread and butter type thing, like a Giannis is like unstoppable force in the paint. But like when you look at Jimmy Butler, like he's just like a guy that just fights for his life out there. And I respect it so much because like he plays winning basketball and just does all the right things. And so I would love to see, what a championship would do in the conversation surrounding him because, you know, there's like you would have nothing but respect for it, including the performances he's already had in, the top stages of the playoffs. Like, but I would love a chip for him. I don't know exactly where people would place him, but like, you know, but yeah, definitely into that like kind of Dirk one time, you know, carried a team in a heavy playoff run type player for sure.
Yeah, I think the only thing I really have to add is that I think a chip makes him a Hall of Famer, honestly.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
there's actually not even an argument. Last year he should have been an All-Star, but he declined it because Bam couldn't get it. He said he'd only accept it if they were both there. But I mean, looking at it, 6 time should be 7 time All-Star, 4 time All NBA, 5 time All Defensive, 2014, 2015 Most Improved. He's got a steals champ. I do think a ring puts him in the Hall of Fame conversation. I don't think it makes him a first ballot. Like, if he were to, I hope I'm wrong, but he would potentially get there kind of posthumous, like, you
Mhm.
know. But I mean, man, I love Jimmy Butler. I remember, what was it, 2K13 with Derrick Rose, KD, and Blake Griffin on the cover. That was kind of like my first initial like introduction to Jimmy Butler, and even then, I mean, looking at that season, he was still kind of buns. But I think when you look at who's really put in the time and effort and who's really grinded it out the most, I don't think there's many people who surpass like Jimmy Butler. Because I mean, regardless of how his NBA career ends, he's gonna have like one hell of a story. Just
Mhm.
like in terms of what he's gone through, being kicked out to like having to page his transcript or whatever it was from like a McDonald's. I think it was like, if you don't know the story of Jimmy Butler, that's something you've got to watch because that's
Yeah.
like that's some motivating shit.
When we become old heads talking basketball 20 years from now, like we're still gonna be talking about the respect we have for this
Mm,
guy.
no
Like
doubt.
Jimmy Butler, like if he doesn't win the chip, like sure his name might slide down in the conversations, but like guaranteed the moment we go, remember Jimmy Butler? Like it was just gonna be like
Yeah.
Whenever you
all
hear the word dog, the first person
yeah,
is Jimmy
man.
Butler.
He's such a great I don't know. I would love like I don't know what team wouldn't love to have him, you know?
Yeah.
The Minnesota Timberwolves.
Okay, yeah. And then you have the 76ers who then dropped him also. Okay, yeah.
For
But look,
Tobias Harris? Oh my
mistakes on
goodness.
all of their ends. Mistakes on all of their ends, you know? Like Jimmy Butler's proving to be that guy. And like I'm blown away by it every single time because sure, like I will agree that like in regular season, like media conversations, everything sleeps on him, you know?
Straight up.
No doubt. All right, that kind of leads into the second question. Who's the most important player on the Heat right now? So, for me personally, I think it's Bam Adebayo because he's shown
Yep.
that ability to really be a top 10, top 5 center in the league. I think in a different world, if he stays healthy, he doesn't fuck up his thumb, I think he's Defensive Player of the Year, low key. But, I mean, looking at today's game, he just looked like he just looked like buns. He was getting cooked, and he hasn't really had that dominating like play that made him one of the players who got put on the Olympic team. He hasn't really had like one of those 25, 10, and 5 kind of stat lines yet. So I do anticipate him to kind of, up his play. But yeah, I think when it comes to the ability to be a player on both ends, and I think because that's such a big aspect of Heat culture, if you can't play defense, you're not going to play that much. I mean, look at Duncan Robinson. He got paid $90 million, and now all he does is a podcast. But uh, shit talking
Yeah.
aside,
Me and him. That's
Hey, he got some minutes last game, right?
this game, yeah, he got some garbage time minutes. No, but I do think in order for them to win, Jimmy Butler's going to be Jimmy Butler. I mean, he's averaging, what is it, 30 points per game in the playoffs right now. So, you know, as great as that is, it's kind of a similar thing with the Bucks, where if no one's going to hop on for the ride, bus is going to crash. So I think outside of Jimmy Butler, actually even surpassing Jimmy Butler, I think Bam's the most important player on the Heat right now, just in terms of being able to run their offense and their defense. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree completely. Like, I think in terms of how I kind of interpret the question, it's like most in player for this series and like going forward in the playoffs. I think you need Bam to be closer to averaging 20 points and not dropping 6 points in a game, right?
Hmm.
Like he is arguably like when Kyle Lowry isn't on the floor, which he isn't right now. I think he is technically the second option on the floor in terms of generating offense and generating points. And obviously, he's a good defensive center, but I think he needs to play more aggressively against guys like Al Horford, for example, or um, even Robert Williams. Like, obviously, they're both good defensive centers or defensive bigs. Um, but I do think he has the offensive prowess to like kind of take the ball to the rim more and kind of bring that big man presence for the team. Because yeah, I definitely agree. You don't really see that um, Olympic Bam Adebayo in him right now, right?
No doubt.
Yeah, I too am gonna agree to this. When I was just looking up and down the Heat roster and like what's gonna create the biggest separation. Jimmy Butler, as you said, is gonna do Jimmy Butler things. Kyle Lowry, when I think about like his playmaking, isn't gonna be the key to stopping um Boston. For sure, it's definitely gonna be the defensive end. Um, and I also want to give a shout out to Bam as a player, relatively good playmaker himself. Um, you know, but it's true he's going to need to be a little more aggressive. But when you think of like he's already had a couple iconic blocks on Jason Tatum, but like it obviously is a difficult task to to try to square up to him every single game. Like Jason Tatum is still like an amazing player, and you're gonna have a difficult time trying to seal him up every single time. But um, yeah, I Bam for sure.
No doubt. All right, heading to the next question. Kind of similar to the first question, but we got a different person to talk about here. Gabe,
Yeah.
what do you think another championship does for Eric Spoelstra?
Shout out to Spo, man. Shout out to all my Filipinos one
More
time.
pride, baby.
There's not a lot of us in here, but
Yes, Filipino
Filipinos
pride.
are very passionate about basketball, and he's definitely one of like having someone in that position. Amazing. What that like? Okay, so I'm gonna rewire this question because this is my first thought. Do you think if he wins another chip that he's like better than Pop?
I don't think so, but
No.
I think the argument is probably more so the fact that one, well, he's probably already the greatest Heat coach because he has two, but I think, does it, I guess, to kind of counteract that, does that put him like kind of in the same echelon? Obviously not surpassing, but does that put him in the same kind of company as?
I would think so. Like when you think about the great coaches, and you even had the top 15 greatest coaches list come out and all that kind of stuff. Like he's definitely decorated in that sense. But like that's just my question is with Pop specifically is because, like he had his core for the majority of all of it, but I think that what separates him from Pop would be the sense that Eric Spoelstra has done it with two entirely different, like, or essentially multiple different cores. You know, coaching game plans with oh, fact check me. Was he coach in '06 when Shaq?
No, he was
Okay,
an assistant, I believe.
never
Yeah.
mind then. That was the basis of a very big point of my thought process. But yeah, I mean, I think that like he's already like set himself up to be one of the greatest coaches. I think that like can he hit that Phil Jackson level of doing it with two very different, personnel on your team? Like that would kind of be like where I'd put him if, he gets another chip. Uh but like he's already, you know, debatably top 5. So like I don't really know how much further you can separate yourself from like the guys you're already in company with. He's already such a great coach. But yeah, I think that like you can start to shift, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s and just refresh that conversation who the greatest coach of all time was if he does end up getting another one. But yeah,
I agree. Yeah, I think when it's all said and done, I think he'll definitely be in that company because, I mean, there's no reason why he wouldn't be a lifer in Miami. Because I mean, he's such an integral part of it. Considering he's like again kind of that homegrown. He's a part of that Heat culture, and again Pinoy pride. That's the main thing I'm pulling for, man. Eric Spoelstra's got to coach the national Filipino team and run his entire offense through Jalen Green, Jordan Clarkson, and Kai Soto. But yeah, no, he's that guy. I'll say.
Oh.
What about you, Chin? Anything to add?
Yeah, I think he's definitely like when it's all said and done, he's going to be a great coach regardless. Like he's been a winning coach since like he's been like indicted as the Miami Heat coach, right? Like even like in the harder years where Wade was aging out and like LeBron and Bosh left, like they weren't a totally negative team. He was pretty much like playing with like, half a deck.
Yeah, in the sorry to cut you off real quick.
Yeah.
In the seasons, in all his seasons, he only has two losing records and one 500. But that's insane. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No, exactly. And that's like kind of my point too, is that I think he has never like it kind of I think in my opinion that's like one of the biggest things for like top coaches in my kind of mind is like how their winning record is because it says a lot more about the coach when you have a shitty ass team versus having like, a star or like numerous stars on your team all throughout your years. Like no disrespect to Phil Jackson, but this guy has coached pretty much like all-time great teams every fucking year he's been a coach. So obviously he's ending up on that list big thanks to his players. Um, but Eric Spoelstra, all said and done, has been a winning coach, and I think he deserves his flowers. And I agree, he's a top five coach for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right. Speaking from one top five thing, is this one potentially another? Christian, as the resident Celtics fan, where does Jason Tatum rank overall for players right now? You think?
Holy fuck! Think of this. Like I'm trying to think of it so objectively, yes, objectively, and not be like Jason. Like literally, the thing that is holding together my monitor right now is a Jason Tatum Funko Pop. Like, like, dude, like. Anyways, I'm not gonna say anything inappropriate. Uh, I think as of right now, like what we are seeing in the playoffs, I think he is playing at the potential of like honestly, of a top three player. It's like top 3 to 5 player. I would say he's obviously the number one player in the world right now. I think undisputably that's Giannis Antetokounmpo any day of the week. If you even want to make an argument,
Root.
sure, but you're wrong. Like Giannis is the best player in the league. And
Yeah.
then you'd obviously have the Joel Embiids and the Jokic's of the world, who are interchangeable between 1, 2, and 3, which is why it's hard to say Jason Tatum is like a top 3 player in the league, right? Like all throughout the season. But I think as of right now, he is showing potential to be like on that level. Um, like if you kind of look at his numbers against Milwaukee, putting up like over 50% shooting in two of the most important games to end out a series is like very telling of a player who obviously has like superstar like upper echelon material like greatness, right? Like I think that's like in my mind, no disrespect to Devin Booker at all. I think he's a great player, but I think he is the real Kobe disciple.
No, that's
Jason
that's
Tatum,
totally fair. That's totally fair.
yeah, and I think like putting up those types of numbers, like averaging, like putting up a 40-point game in what was it, game five, game six? Um, I don't know. I think he, for me, ranks closer to 3 to 5 at the moment.
Hmm.
Just in terms of like being that player through the season, he obviously was a big contributing factor, if not the largest contributing factor, to the turnaround from them being like a lower seed team to ending at what, the second ranked team in the East going into the playoffs.
You talking seating wise?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But
you
yeah,
yeah,
he's
guys
second seed.
been popping. He's been popping off since New Year's for
yeah,
sure.
exactly. And I think like he's shown leadership quality. He's averaged like a high in assists this year, kind of contributing more on the floor, like in terms of like where points are actually being delegated to. Um, I don't know. I think he's a do-it-all player, like a 28, 8, 28, 8, 8, and 8. Fuck me. 28, 8, and 8 guy. Sorry, I'm just using those numbers. That's like rough averages, right? Like I think
Yeah.
you like doing that on high efficiency with a team with full of like scorers. I think that is, I don't know, that's just so Kobe Bryant esque to me. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fucking beautiful.
But-
Giannis is still the best player in the league, though. I'm not gonna say Jason Tatum. If
Oh,
if I was making a podcast on my own, I would probably say Jason Tatum is the best player in the league.
Go ahead, Gabe. Let's hear it, bro.
I think I can comfortably place him between 5 to 10. I think that like it does get a little, you know, when you're pushing the top five, it can get a little blurry, but I can definitely comfortably put him yeah, between 5 to 10. Like, dude, I don't know what game it was, but like was it? But like just recently against the Bucks, man, like he was so good at, Bucks were almost gonna make a comeback again, and he just did not miss. My guy, Jason Tatum, did not miss, and I'm like,
I think that was
I
game
under
6.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I understand. He's such a dominant wing, so good. Uh, like I you know you can the Kobe disciple thing. I can definitely agree with. I think the Kobe branding on book is a little weird. Not gonna
Hell yeah.
lie, like it's like you're dismissing it, but then you're still accepting the roles in like NBA commercials to like look like it. You know what I mean? Like I think that if you were really trying to separate it yourself from it, maybe just don't do that. But like I understand that the whole like footwork contested mid range thing is like what people are attesting to, but enough of that. But yeah, like dude, I think yeah, because I just don't know who I could kick off the top five. But I love Jason Tatum. Maybe not as much as my girlfriend does, but like I like yeah, top five. Because I don't know who you're kicking out, like Braun, Joel,
I'm kicking out Braun.
Giannis. Okay,
I'm
okay.
picking up on too.
Personally.
So then okay. So then who would it be?
Okay.
Not that we're trying to be those guys.
Here's my
We're not
official
trying to
top
be
5.
those guys.
Hold on. Because I answered this question first, let me just reinstate this. I think
Yes.
the question says right now, and obviously that is given with like the current status of the season, and obviously there's a recency bias with the playoffs going on.
Yeah.
But I think that like the recency bias is fair in a sense where like you made it to the playoffs for a reason. I kick off Braun because this dude like was a 10th seed with fucking like
Uh,
with empty
His
numbers,
stats
like
at 38 though.
I wouldn't say empty numbers. I
I
would
wouldn't say empty numbers.
that
I would say he's the
his
last thing
team
that
was just so ass.
That's yeah.
Because I mean, if you're depending on DJ Augustine as your backup point guard, you are fucked.
Yeah.
hey man, DJ Augustine has had some nice years. Let's see.
That's true. Pacers
Yeah,
legend,
well,
man.
Game
Orlando
one
Magic,
magic,
Oh,
type
true.
things.
I remember that.
But I don't know.
Okay,
Yeah.
here's my official top 5, yo. On some real shit.
Okay.
I think it's Giannis, Jokic, Luca, Embiid, and then Tatum at 5. But you could probably switch with KD. I think as great as LeBron is, there's no way he's top 5 right now.
Over Steph?
Oh shit! Never mind. I take out Embiid and put Steph there.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. That's
My
what I
bad,
mean.
my
Like
bad.
it's hard. Like that. Like that's what I mean by it gets a little bit blurrier because for me, I can put Jason Tatum ahead of James Harden 100%. But like it gets
Bro, I'll
iffy
put
when
an
it comes.
Austin Reeves in front of James Harden, man.
straight up, bro.
But yeah, that I think that's where I'll just place him between there. Like
I
I'm not
think
gonna get
I
specific
think for
numbers.
me,
But
like the argument too, like in terms of why I think he's at least top 5 is just like the team contribution, right? Like no
oh
disrespect.
yeah.
I fucking love the Warriors next to
Yeah.
anyone, but
Yeah.
like I think the fact that Curry does have like those players around him, like really helps like kind of alleviate like any sort of like backlash he gets. Like Klay Thompson plays out of his mind every game, so does Draymond, and I wouldn't
Yeah.
say like that contributes any less to Steph's numbers. He puts up crazy numbers, but in terms of greatness in the league
Like
right now,
yeah, like you just need a bucket. Jason Tatum can get you a bucket. Like
Tatum has
Against
really been
anyone.
he's been that guy for the last like 3 months.
Mhm.
Like, that's why.
yeah.
I agree. Like
I
Steph
think
Curry,
that it might just be the longevity bias. Like
I
he's
think
only
it's
been in the league for like not as long as these guys. so it's like hard to compare, the actual like body of work. But
Yeah.
I think
yeah,
it's 100% valid to kind of like have that. I don't want to say an asterisk, but fuck it, it's an asterisk with Steph. Because I mean, what happened when Draymond wasn't there? They went from one of the best teams to fucking like trying to float.
um, he was also injured. Aaron Baines fell on Steph Curry's hand, and he was out the whole season.
Oh yeah, that too. But
So not trying to defend him, but I do agree that like if you want to get into the whole point of like Steve Kerr is only a good coach because he's coached Steph, or like like without the system it's without Draymond it's whatever, but like yeah I mean you can get into all that kind of stuff, but I think that I'd still probably have Steph in the top 5.
no doubt. But here's a hot take. I don't think it's crazy to say that Draymond Green is the most important player on the Warriors.
Of
Oh,
course
for
not.
sure.
Yeah.
Of course not.
I
Okay.
think he
Just
not a hot take, to be honest.
fire. Okay.
He does amazing things, and he's a great player, great analyst, great person to watch and to observe in the league, Draymond Green. But like,
I want to
nah.
see him and Pat Bev go head to head on analyzing shit. That would be amazing. But all right, just to kind of get back on track, we'll head to this next question. So, is Grant Williams the next PJ Tucker? And I have to say, 100%. I will say though, he's got better. He's got more range than PJ Tucker. He's not just tucked away in the corner. We saw Game 7. He was able to hit it from the wing pretty solidly, and even more than just from like a tenacity standpoint, he just has the PJ Tucker build. He's built like a fire hydrant. He's 6'6", 230, I think. That just screams PJ Tucker. He's bald as well, or he got a little bit of stubble on his head, but he's got the PJ Tucker look to him. Give it a few more years when he gets that kind of gruff to him, it'll be looking like a spitting mirror. But nah, I also would say though, with Grant Williams, how do I word this? I think it's sort of a floor in a sense where I think he's already somewhat in that mold, and just kind of as he progresses through his career and as he continues to, pick up experience and all that, I think that's just something he'll grow into. But also the fact that he's still only 24, 25, we could be seeing like even more than that.
Got
But
time.
I think just the fact that you have that kind of player in the Celtics on a team that's already so loaded, that's amazing. But yeah, I mean, if we're looking at the realm of players we have right now, based on builds and all that stuff, Grant Williams the next PJ Tucker.
I agree. I think like there was one play last game where he literally backed PJ Tucker into the paint. I was like, wow. I was like, that's like the passing of the torch right there. Because literally it was like two thick dudes just like grinding up against each other, and he
When
just
he's
like
banging you, when a guy is banging you.
I don't think there's much to add to that though.
Yeah, no, I can agree to that too. My note here just says he can be, only time can tell, currently like filling that role, but has the capability to surpass him. I'm not trying to say that like PJ Tucker is a bad player to be compared to, but like when we're talking about like Grant Williams, and I think that his potential in the NBA, like he could definitely like surpass that role as just like your 3 and D dog. Um, so yeah, like similar to, you could say right now, like he does those things. But like overall, is he the next? Like he plays so much, of a key part into, like the Boston Celtics future, from my point of view, so that like he definitely can surpass that level.
No doubt. All right. Heading into there, though, Gabe, you got this next question. On the topic of Grant Williams, who would you say is the Boston Celtics' biggest X factor? So, not necessarily their best player, but when you think of like this guy really has a chance to be a difference maker, kind of outside of the Jason Tatums and the Jalen Browns, who would you say is the Celtics' biggest X factor? Aaron
Um,
Nesmith? Me too.
yeah, yeah. I mean the typical answer, I guess you could say Grant Williams here. I like I think I'll just talk through my thought process because I don't really have one particularly. Yeah, Grant Williams, fantastic. 3D. If he's able to, be able to be a switchable guy that can get on to Bam and stop him and Jimmy a little bit, that'd be great. But lately, I've also want to give a shout out to the return of Al Horford. I know that he was just injured for game one, I believe. Um, but even in the last series against the Bucks, like it was so good to see him play in the uniform again, because I really thought that he was, in the past runs in the past couple of years, for the Boston Celtics was a really big key contributor to that. But like also like I also want to just like Peyton Pritchard just a little bit because I like
Did you see him do
I
the little man shit to
oh
Tyler
man.
Hero? Oh, sorry. Go, keep going, keep going.
Yeah. So like I like like 10 it may have just been like what 10 points, but I mean like any bucket in the playoffs is so important, and the fact that this guy so young, like not anywhere, the biggest sizable dude, but like he's just like getting at you like that, like that's incredible to watch. Like I'm just like it's just entertaining to me, and like yeah, sure, like just the too small, all that, like I guess you could say that I have a thing for like shit talkers in the league. Like I'm very, it's I think it's like extra entertaining to watch. Um, so yeah, man, talk your shit, Peyton. Just fucking hit your stuff and keep going what you're doing. Like I understand that you have like a pretty minority role off the bench, but like I am observing his minutes like very like precisely because like I'm like looking out to see what he does. But yeah,
Nice. For me, I would say it's the fantasy MVP this year, Time Lord. Uh, First of all, I think it's insane that he came back from with Chris Middleton, it was a sprain, but Robert Williams fucking tore his shit and he had surgery and all that. So I think it's even insane that he's playing right now. But
Ro-
when you look at Robert Williams, I don't think it's crazy to say that if that torn MCL or whatever it was doesn't happen, that one, he's a finalist for DPOY, and two, he maybe even wins it. I mean, you could arguably put. I don't think they'd ever do it, but if there ever was a year to kind of give it to two people, this would have been the year with both Marcus Smart and uh, Robert Williams III. Because one, they take so much pressure off of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who are already such great defenders themselves, and with the fact that he's only 6'8", so we can definitely switch on to guards, but he plays so much bigger than that. His ability to be a lob threat is a good one, and just overall kind of be that dog and just there. I don't think I've ever seen a play where he really gave up on it. And even today, he was like the mic'd up dude, and you can see doesn't matter if he's on the floor or not. He's still like really being the heart and the beating soul of that team in a sense. And yeah, the Time Lord is someone I was like very high on coming into this year. I think him and Dorian Finney-Smith, I think, are the two most valuable players in the sense that they both got fairly team friendly deals and they're doing bits for their teams. But yeah, I think if there's one X factor and one person who can really make a difference in the series outside of like the stars, I think it's Robert Williams III, just because I think he has the opportunity to really, not necessarily fully take Bam out of the game, but at least to neutralize him a bit, make him work harder, which evidently will hopefully transition into, more opportunities and, the Miami Heat starting to tire out. But yeah, for me, it's the Time Lord.
Yeah, I think adding on really quickly, I think for me it's Marcus Smart. Like he came back today, I believe, and he had an almost triple double game, like
mhm.
24, 12, and 9 with 3 steals. Like that is fucking ridiculous, dude. Like for a defensive player of the year of all
That's
things.
I'm not gonna lie, I fell asleep during the game because it was it was a fucking big ass blowout. But I think I fell asleep before the third quarter. But he had like a stinker going into the break, didn't he? I think he only had like 6 points and like 6-2 and 2 or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think he was like going off too crazy. I think he had like 5 assists in the. I think he may have had more than 2 assists at the end of the half.
Oh no, you're right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think he had like I think it was like 6, 2, and 5. Then that was his stat line. But yeah,
I think he's an underrated player in terms of heating up. Like he can really like get his shot going if like
Hmm.
no doubt.
he's inconsistent, and like he's also like an underrated slasher too. And I think that obviously has to do with him being a strong defensive player. Like he's able to, or at least he's able to size up against the bigger players. But
Hmm.
24, 12, and 9 with three, like I think he was the best player on the floor today, to be honest. Aside from Jason Tatum, of course. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
like me.
yeah. Marcus Smart with the most minutes played today on his team with 40. Like definitely just goes to show like
Dog.
he is like the heartbeat and the rhythm
Daddy.
of the team. Yeah. So yeah, kudos to him, man. Like that's very well said.
All right, heading from there, we're gonna talk about Yay Area. I don't
Yeah,
know if y'all saw in
Ariel.
game one. Too Short was performing. I didn't get to see it. I just saw like the little bits of it. But talking about blowing the whistle, Christian, if the Warriors win, who wins the Magic Johnson MVP slash the Finals MVP? So, if you're not aware already, this is just kind of another way they're celebrating the 75th anniversary. For the conference finals, they're giving out an MVP award. I don't think it's actually called the Magic Johnson MVP, but I know that's who it's to commemorate Magic Johnson in the West and Larry Legend in the East. So, Christian, it can be different players, or if you think it'd be the same person, who do you have winning those two awards?
For me, it's like tough because I personally think, you know, this award would probably end up in Steph Curry's hands logistically. He obviously has just been playing like an MVP more for the whole year than anything. Obviously, he had that kind of bad split at the end, but he's been the most consistent player for the Warriors in terms of putting up points, and that's I think usually what MVP awards go to, like usually just the consistency of points. But I think for me, like the who I think this award deserves to go to is probably Draymond Green. Um, like we just talked about it, but I think he's been like the most highest contributing player on the floor. Like if you even saw it in the Grizzlies like series, like when they had Steve Kerr out for coaching, he was really the coach on the floor. Like he was slowing down every play because Curry was tossing up the shittiest, like the worst turnovers. Same with Clay, honestly. Like they were not like creating any cohesion, and like Draymond is honestly the reason I think they won that series at the end of it. Um, so yeah, I think like when it's all said and done, like it's probably going to be the same thing for this series where Draymond is going to be the biggest contributor, like on and off the floor, really. But it'll probably go to Steph Curry.
Yeah, I don't think that's. I think I 100% agree. I think this will kind of be the day where Steph finally wins Finals MVP, can put that to rest. But I think there's somebody who really deserves it. Not that Steph doesn't, but no, I think Draymond Green deserves it. I think if the Mavericks end it, or if the Mavs get ended in 6, then it's gonna go to Clay. Though. But yeah, no, I think 100% agree.
Yeah. Same here, Steph.
All right,
No debates here.
consensus, solid. All right, next question. Where would y'all rank this chip if they win? You know, this is looking quite a bit ahead, but uh, I will say I don't think many of us would be are out here picking the Mavs for this series, except maybe Ruben because he's been pretty high on that train. But for me personally, I think if the Warriors do win this one, I think it's one of their most, if not one of, I think it's their most like important one when it comes to like this trio or this core, this culture they've been able to establish post like We Believe era. Because if you look at it, you know, the first one, obviously that's going to be special forever. That's the first time they really showcased like they got next. And then obviously we all know what happened for the next like half a decade where it was literally like, man, let's just skip to the finals already. And then even from there, you have this big break, whether it be because of injuries. Actually, it's 100% because of injuries. You know, the injuries that piled up. Clay obviously missing out on 2 years. Steph missing out on a year. and Draymond not really missing out, but having to kind of like lay back and just kind of, help develop these young guys. I think it's the most important one slash going to be the most impactful in that they've been so used to such sustained success, and now you see how, you know, coming back from like all they've come back from. I think, man, I think it's going to be crazy seeing Clay. Clay's going to be balling if they end up winning. He's going to be balling his eyes out because of like all the shit he's been through. And, if Steph really wins finals MVP, I hope he has a nice one-liner lined up for it. Because, that's kind of always been like a lot of the bullshit people want to bring up. Like, oh, he got carried by Iguodala, KD or whatever. But, yeah. So that is my fancy way of saying I think this would be the top chip for them outside of maybe their first one. But when you look at all the ones they won, this one would be very special.
Yeah, that's my thoughts exactly. I was gonna say literally just probably the second most important behind the first one. Not trying to say that the ones with KD aren't, important. Like they are chips. They are like, you know, fought for, deserved. But to be fair, like it's kind of lopsided with KD and Steph on the same team, and like so
it's hard to win a championship when
it
your
is.
team's advertising Matthew Dellavedova as one of your top guys.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, shout out to 2018 LeBron though. Like the scariest player I've ever seen in my entire life. But um, that wasn't even enough to like, even put a scratch on them. So yeah. Second most important, I think it'd be the great. Like if this is their last chip as a core, like it would be the cherry on top to it all. Like they've already accomplished so much. Not saying that they're done after this, because they're very much well be gonna still be contending as one of the best teams in the league for at least a couple years to come. But if this is their last, then it's like that's already so much honors to them. So yeah.
Yeah, I think just last thing, like I personally think it could be their most important chip because this could be like some Michael Jordan type shit, run it back another. Well, even though they didn't 3P. Actually, did they? No, they
No,
did.
there was
No,
the
no, no.
Yeah,
2016. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes, but
Like
this could be like some legacy type stuff, like
I
I
like
could
that. I like the idea of that. Yeah,
I could easily see them winning. Like if they were to win this year, I don't see any reason why they couldn't run it back next year with the same team.
Mhm.
true. Especially with Kaminga developing and all that. Okay, nice, solid. All right, last question for the Warriors. Gabe, what would you say is Klay Thompson's ceiling next year? Obviously this is first time back in basketball after 2 years, and he's had a nice solid start to it. But kind of looking past all this, where do you see him next year? Would you say?
Um. So yeah, Clay, man, like him getting it, just so good to see him back on the court after so long. Like the league's definitely missed him. He's such a character and beloved all throughout the league. Um, his ceiling, I don't think it really changes. To be quite honest, I mean, worst he stays relatively as he like relatively the same player that he is. I don't really see him like surpassing that. I think that like he showed that it was a little bit rocky on the start, but like same thing when it comes to Game 6 Clay, greatest heat check of all time. Like he still has the capability of being that guy, and it has shown to be a little bit inconsistent. I know that some of the shots he took, in like the Grizzlies series, you could question are a little questionable. But like um I don't know, like his ceiling doesn't really change for me. Like he's still just like an elite player. His defense, like I'm still gonna be monitoring that if that's gonna be as good as it was before the injury. But like I don't see it pushing too much further up if that is how you were thinking of directing the question. But
I
like I
get.
would just hope he doesn't decline as fast
Mm,
as he could, but I don't really see it going up from here. To be quite honest.
I guess to kind of reword it in a different way then, because I think the thing I was mainly thinking like basically, do you think Clay has another All-Star appearance in him in his career, whether it be next
Ooh.
year or like these few
Um,
coming years? Yeah.
I love him, but unless they get a chip, probably not. Like, unless if they return as like a one seed, like there were the years that like Clay, Steph, and Draymond all get like all stars. But I think with how competitive the league is gonna be, the return of Kawhi, there's already like so many all star spots that are like scratch, like just like borderline, like fought for or debated. You could even you have like people like Jamal Murray. Oh no, Jamal Murray, Dejounte Murray, like having those all star spots kind of like eyed for. I don't necessarily think it's gonna be like we're gonna expect Clay to improve as much. I just hope he just doesn't digress. Like that's it. And like I love him though, love him, but like
Yeah, no, that's
that's all I can
perfectly
really say.
put. Like, I think that's me being the ultimate optimist that, next year's a revenge season kind of thing and, career year
Hmm.
and everything. But yeah, I think even the fact that he's back to playing is amazing because, I mean, 2 years of not playing basketball. So
Hmm.
that's insane. I guess, yeah. Chin, you got anything to add or kind of all the same sentiments?
Yeah, I think it's more or less the same. Like it's kind of hard to say. I think his ceiling still remains the same though. Like he's shown flashes of him still being like close to the same player he was like pre-injury. It's just tough. Yeah, like I agree with Gabe. There's so many up and coming players now, especially in the West, like Ja Morant, DeJounte Murray. Zion will probably come back next season.
Bro.
Um, yeah, there's just numerous names you could throw on the table that like he would have to fight against for an
Mm.
all-star appearance specifically. But I do think he is like no longer a shell of himself like he was at the beginning of this season.
Yeah, the rust is
That's how
definitely
you talk it.
shaken.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty, solid. We have made it this far. If you are by chance still listening at this point, follow, subscribe, leave a rating, all that shit. This all helps the podcast to grow. With that being said, let's talk about our last team, the Dallas Mavericks. Arguably, not even arguably, the Cinderella story of this year, no doubt.
Hmm.
Christian, does this playoff run enhance Jason Kidd's reputation past past the besmirchment many have for him as a coach? Because I guess prior to this season, or even at the beginning of this season, people were still kind of be like, oh, Jason Kidd's another like Hall of Fame top 10 point guard of all time who thinks he can just come into coaching and make it work. And right now it's looking like he's making it work. But yeah, Chin, what do you think?
No, yeah, I think if people haven't like respected Jason Kidd past this point already, it's pretty like blind basketball watching. Like the Suns, like by all means, were the best team coming into this playoffs objectively and even subjectively. Like I thought they were honestly like going to the finals if it wasn't the Warriors. Um, and for a team like his, especially built with a center that is Maxi Kleber and Dwight Powell and I guess Davis Bertans, like that's just like one thing that stands out to me all the time is just thinking about the Mavericks. Like this guy really made adjustments to go against the
Hmm.
best team in the NBA, and he did it. Like that's good coaching at its finest, right? I don't think there's any like principle beyond that that should kind of question his coaching. He definitely had a shaky start to the season, I will say that.
Hmm.
But I think as a coach, he obviously made the right decision, or at least contributed to making the right decision to get rid of Kristaps Porzingis, who, in my opinion, was the kind of poison to the team for a while. But yeah, I think people should put respect on his name.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah, I agree. I don't think he really gets the love he deserves. Number one, as like one of the best point guards of all time, but even as a coach, because I mean, I don't think you can really put the Brooklyn shit on him. He got a bunch of oldie past their primes. Like, I think KG must have been like 37. Paul Pierce was 35. I mean, what the fuck else you supposed to do? Darren Williams was cool, but
True.
I think just looking at the makeup of that initial roster he had as kind of his introduction to being a head coach, kind of weird. I think that, and just looking at uh, the fact that a lot of those guys just a few years before were like his confidants and like, winning, going to like NBA All Star games together and all that stuff together. I think it was just kind of, you know, all of us have been like dancing together before, and how, as much as when you're a coach, if you have such a personal relationship with people, it is kind of difficult to separate that. But now that we're seeing that it's kind of past that, to where nobody here he's really played with, unless it's like, one of the oldies like the Bronze. Uh, Jason Tatum is a great coach.
Yeah, Jason Tatum's a great coach.
Jason Tatum's a great. Oh shit! Jason Kidd is a great coach. It's this Boston Green running off of me, man. But nah, I love Jason Tatum because I think, just to kind of tie it to the Bucks here, I think he gave Giannis the confidence to really like evolve his playmaking. Because, I mean, looking at the year before Jason Tatum put him at PG, he like pretty much doubled his assists, and from there it's never really dropped below the numbers when he was initially inserted as a point guard. And you got to credit him for that, because he was kind of, I can't think of any other point guards who were taller than Giannis prior to that, because even Ben Simmons wasn't in the league and stuff like that. And I think the one thing you can never knock Jason Kidd for is the fact that he's willing to like go outside the box, whether it be Giannis at point guard, fully committing to small ball this year, and overall just kind of running that 3-guard lineup that has the ability to be really deadly. I don't think it's crazy to say in the next few years he wins a Coach of the Year, honestly, as they continue to build out that team. Hopefully they get like a more of a legit center. The Mavs have definitely... It's going to be interesting these next few years, but interesting in like the best of ways, I'd say.
Yeah, he definitely outcoached the Coach of the Year, so there's that. You can also, now that he's proving his worth, like I can only imagine the what if on the Lakers end of things when they were considering him over Vogel. So like there's that you can put in discussion, but reputation, like yeah, like it's like one thing to be a playoff or like a successful team during the regular season, but being able to make adjustments, not only the defensive adjustments against the Suns, but the way that he was able to protect Luca from switches was very, very effective. And like, getting the most out of the players that he definitely had. Like, you would expect with the playing mismatch of like, yeah, as you guys said, Dwight Powell, Maxi Kleber, against someone you would consider a relatively dominant center in DeAndre, and they very much made his play style, nullified. And so I think it's kudos to Jason Kidd. Like he definitely does deserve the respect for even just the way that like he's turned the Mavs season around. And you know the whole roster change. They had a top 5 defense this season. Like, yeah, like it's like one thing's just to throw him in the box of like the player that he is, but like as a coach, like he's definitely like proving himself to be one of the better coaches in the league.
No doubt. This second question, low key, a bit of a wash because we did kind of talk about it earlier, I guess, with Jason Tatum. But where would you rank Luca after this playoff run? So for me, I think we can all agree he's like top 5 for sure. But I think even in the grand scheme of things, looking at Europeans, I think he's right on the cusp of Dirk, especially at this point in their careers. Now, obviously, this is like me projecting down the line, but if you think about it, we haven't even seen like prime Luca. We're still a few years from that, and if he's already putting up, what is it, 28, 9 and 9 in the regular season, and ups that to like 30, 10 and 6, and the fact that he's in the company of Michael Jordan at 22 years old, that's insane. So I think as much as I think Giannis is the best European of all time already, I think Luca is definitely going to surpass Dirk. Now, I think the one thing that has to happen with that is obviously winning a chip, but when you look at the skill he possesses and the fact that we should all be thankful to Kawhi Leonard for taking Luca out of his first two playoff runs, you know, Luka Doncic, there's literally no ceiling for his potential. He's that great of a player that like you can't even really compare him to anybody. Like
Mhm.
if I were to really think about it, I think he's a mix of Magic Johnson's passing and Larry Bird's ability to get a shot off from anywhere. But
True.
yeah, I think overall just Luca's so destined to be an all-time great, and the fact that he's only 22 is insane.
That boy nice.
That boy nice.
That boy nice. It definitely was a bittersweet feeling watching him cook the Suns. So I'll give him that. Like it's damn man, like every time he chucks that ball up, every step back three, every contested like drive, like you don't think it's going in, but like that thing is going in, man. So
Yeah, he's definitely one of those players where it's like he could throw it backwards, and there's like, fuck, there's a chance that shit's going in.
yeah, yeah, uh, I think after this playoff run, you can definitely revisit like the top five. But same thing, I think that like as of right now, just in terms of my personal ranking of players, I can like as of right now, he comfortably sits between the 5 to 10.
Hmm.
But I'm very, as you said, after this playoff run, which isn't over, so um, well, at the end of it, we'll revisit that conversation. I feel, but like for me, currently sitting, yeah, anywhere between that 5 to 10 range. Uh, but that's where I have him.
Yeah, I would agree with Gabe. Like, I also like think I could like be in a whole different headspace, wake up tomorrow and think he is top five. It's really hard, right? Like, because I think there's so many variables with where you place him. Just because obviously he's putting up great numbers and like they're not empty stats by any means. It's just like how he is going to perform in this playoffs will say a lot about his like impact on the game too, right? And obviously he's going up against this undoubtedly like all-time Warriors team like that has continued to be good. I think it'll just be interesting to see like how do I word this, just like where he ends up after this season if he doesn't like beat this Warriors team because obviously like with all the great players they've had to lose quite a few playoffs before they've actually won one. Um, but there's also been a lot of players who've kind of been on this trajectory and kind of never won a chip, right? I mean, we got the James Hardens and the Russell Westbrooks of the world who like will continue to like uplift teams to a certain point and will never bring him over that hump. And I don't see Luca being that type of player, but I think you could have said the same thing about Russ and Harden at those points in their career too. And that's not exactly where he is. Like Russ and Harden obviously flourished further into their careers, but I just think like it's hard to place him at a certain point with like very little sample size we have right now. I think he is like he's in the training arc right now. So I think he is 5 to 10 for me.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Solid. All right. We have talked a lot of basketball. We're on to our last question. Gabe, who's been the MVP for the Mavs behind Luca, you'd say?
Okay, so this is a very awkward question for me to answer because I, for one, have been one to absolutely like underestimate the ability of the rest of the Mavericks team. Um, I think that when it comes to MVP behind the map, like behind Luca, like I really don't know. I like I think the obvious answer is probably like Brunson, but like I wish that I could give you some like more insight to how I thought like to my observation on the Mavs, but like it's just like it's so crazy that like it's just a heliocentric play style where everything runs through Luca, and then like basically if he passes you the ball and you just like kind of have to hit the shot, right? So like I other than I think I'm just gonna have to give it to Brunson because he's basically the only other person that's making shots that aren't passed by Luca, you know. But I think yeah, yeah, I can comfortably give it to Brunson if it isn't Jason Kidd himself. But yeah.
I respect that. For me personally, I think I'd have to give it to Dorian Finney-Smith because he's kind of like he's grown from kind of being an afterthought to where he's in that sort of Mikal Bridges, Chris Middleton esque role in that he's obviously not one of the top guys, but you know he fits with Luca so well. He fits with your superstar so well that you know you're gonna give him as much burn as possible. And not only that, he's proving to be a super solid shooter. I mean, he's a 3-and-D wing, and he's shooting like 42% from three right now. There was that one game, I think it was game 5 or 6, where he's rung off like a whole bunch of threes. And obviously that didn't happen in game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. But when you look at all the people you have to guard on the Warriors, if there's one player outside of Luca who's going to have a really long night, I think it's Dorian Finney-Smith. And for that reason, and again, the fact that he fits so well with Luca, they have some like you can tell the chemistry's there. I think the MVP outside of him is Dorian Finney-Smith. What about you, Chin? What about you, Chin?
I am lagging quite a bit. Hello?
Yo,
Yo, my computer is shitting itself.
all right. So who do you think is the Mavs MVP behind Luca?
Can you guys hear me properly right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I like my like camera's like seconds off like when I look at it. Anyways, um I think it has to be Jalen Brunson for me, like kind of for the same reason Gabe mentioned that he is like his own shot creator. I mean he's like you can tell by the way he's been playing compared to maybe past pretty much every past season where he's been shadowing Luca as a six man. He's been able to create his own shot. And like he's not really afraid to play ISO. Um, like I mean, we've all seen that Rudy Gobert like mixer play he had, and he's kind of been playing a lot more like that as recent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I think that's going to be important for them if they want to beat a team like the Warriors, especially because I think the only way to beat the Warriors is to out offense them at this point, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say they're really going to be able to lock up 1 through 4, especially on that team. Um, so I think they're going to need Brunson to really play out of his fucking mind, honestly, to win.
Agreed.
No doubt at all. But with that being said, this has been another episode of the Blacktop Podcast. We're right
Wait,
below. Oh
real
yeah,
quick.
yeah. What up? What up?
Not to cut you off. Like in like 2 sentences before like other fans get mad at you. Can we real quickly just like breeze over the recap on 76ers and the Grizzlies
Oh,
because I don't think we ever spoke a word about that.
Because do they deserve their respects? No,
I don't know.
okay.
I don't know. All I have to okay, if I were to do this like as fast as possible, 76ers, unfortunate Joel Embiid is out, but other than that, you have James Harden, so what did you expect?
The process is dead. The process is
Yeah.
deaded.
And then Grizzlies, once again, unfortunate injuries that John Morant is out, but like I don't think you were like you weren't getting past them anyways. But I mean, like, hey man, good run, good season. But yeah.
mm. if I,
Respect.
if I had to give my recap really quickly in 30 seconds or less, I think, yeah, the 76ers, you made probably the worst trade of the offseason, like in hindsight now. Um, but yeah, GG to you. The process is over. You have to restart the process probably. As for the Grizzlies, Dylan Brooks is kind of a bitch, to be honest. I don't know how else to put it. He did not deserve to win, and I'm happy Steph Curry schooled his ass. Like he actually took him to school. Like this dude pushed Steph Curry onto the floor and then he lost by fucking 30. Like, sit your ass down, little boy. Anyways, I hope Dylan Brooks hears this.
I kind of want to end it off there, but nah, this has been another episode of the Blacktop Podcast. I've been I've been DJ. That's my cousin Christian and the homie Gabe. We appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll see y'all next time.
Peace.
Thank you.